Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show right here on Clemson Football at the Voice of College Football. Thank you so much for joining me. Tom Allen, new DC at Clemson University, had his introductory press conference today with Dabo Swinney introducing him, about an hour-long press conference. We're going to talk about that in tonight's show. We're going to give some letter grades by position group for the 2024 Clemson Tigers. We're going to talk a little national championship. All of that and more coming up in tonight's episode of the All In Show. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. It really helps us out. We're on the road to 6,000 subscribers, and your help with that would be greatly appreciated. Hit that like button as well. It helps us out, especially on these live videos, and it's free for you to do. Share this video with all your college football friends, family, whoever enjoys college football content. Go ahead and shoot them our video. And then last but certainly not least, we have the super chat feature available for you guys. If you would like to support what me and Jordan do here on this channel, and more specifically this show, the All In Show, go ahead and hit that super chat feature. One, it's going to ensure that your comment and or question attached to it is read and responded to during this live show. And two, it really helps us out and supports what we do here and the work that we do to provide you with good Clemson college football content. So with all of that said, and without further ado, let's get into tonight's show, and let me bring on my co-host, Jordan Boatman. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Good, man. I'm currently in the process of finishing up this hate watch of South Carolina's men's basketball team. They're in a tight game with Vanderbilt. I always got a good hate watch in me. I love doing that.
Absolutely.
Vanderbilt has the ball with 11 seconds left, tie game. We'll see what happens. But anyway, besides that, this isn't a basketball show. Glad to be back. Feels like forever since we were last on.
It's been a while, man. It feels like it's been a couple of weeks since we did a live show. So
yeah, I know, man.
Crazy.
A lot has happened. Obviously, I got a chance to listen to Tom Allen's press conference today, and we're going to talk about it. And we're finally going to put a kind of a bow on the 2024 season because basically right after the loss to Texas, everything started happening fast. We were talking about player retention, transfer portal, coaching changes, like all of that happening in a single period. NFL draft decisions. So it was good to it's good to finally kind of put a wrap on this season and move on into the off season as well. And you already mentioned we're going to talk about the national championship as well. So we got a loaded show, man. I'm ready to get into it.
Yeah, tons of stuff, man. It's almost like the news cycle for the Clemson Tigers has been busier now that the season is over than it was during the season. You mentioned we haven't even been able to do a 2024 season review. Luckily, we're going to fit it into the show tonight, but it's been a jam-packed news cycle for Clemson from the moment that the clock hit zero against Texas for that college football playoff game down in Austin. So it's, we got a lot to talk about. So let's waste no time. Quick shout out to the comment section before we dive into the show. Want to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. We got 26 people in the live chat right now. Please hit that like button for me. Really do appreciate it. Paulie E is the first commenter of the night. Shout out to you, Paulie E. Thank you for being here. Hoof Talk is in here. David Lowry is in here. Kevin John Sarian, one of our OGs, also one of our moderators. Thank you so much for being in here. Isaac Smith's in here. Tiggs, another one of our OG and one of our moderators. The Real McCoy is in here. Thank you for being here. Jackson Johnson, the guy when it comes to plugging all things Voice of College Football. He does a great job bouncing from show to show and really helping us out with getting the content up in the chat that we need to help support not only this show, but all the other channels and shows in the Voice of College Football umbrella. So shout out to you, Jackson Johnson. Thanks for being here. Tiger Fan 24 is in here. Wet Socks, Kevin, And I believe that is it. If I missed you, I'm sorry. It was not intentional. We got a lot to get into. We'll get to the comment section as we always do once we're done with the planned portion of the show. So make sure you guys are chopping it up in there and stick around for the end of the show when we'll chop it up with you guys.
And hate watch complete. Well, there's 0.6 seconds left. Vanderbilt got an offensive rebound in an and one with 0.6 seconds left. I don't believe South Carolina in college you can't advance the ball on a timeout, so it looks like Vanderbilt's going to win. Meaning South Carolina starts 0-4 in SEC play. I'm still baffled that we lost to them.
Makes no sense. Makes no sense whatsoever. Other than this is just their year to beat us, apparently.
Yeah.
So
they just have our number this year. It was the opposite last year. So it's how this rivalry goes sometimes.
Yeah, it is. It does go back and forth quite a bit. Not in football, but in other sports. Tom Allen, new defensive coordinator for the Clemson Tigers, had his introductory press conference today, Wednesday, January 15th. Dabo Swinney was on hand to introduce him to the Clemson Tiger media and also the Clemson Tiger fans. Opened up with a nice little monologue on why he chose Tom Allen for the job and the kind of process that he went through when choosing a defensive coordinator. So, Jordan, I really want to start there before we get into Tom Allen's comments and what he kind of said. What were your thoughts on Dabo Swinney and how he kind of explained his process that he went through while searching for this defensive coordinator?
Yeah, one of the things that, we kind of were talking about when this search was going on was, okay, where is Dabo? Like, what is his mindset going into this search? Like, we felt pretty confident it was going to be somebody from the outside. So, I mean, that was the only thing we felt like we knew for certain. But we were like, okay, is he going to go get a sitting head coach somewhere? Is he going to go get a sitting defensive coordinator at another school? Is he going to go the NFL route? And there were a lot of speculation, a lot of people throwing names out. But at the end of the day, we didn't really know. So listening to Dabo's press conference, he said, I had a list of 12 sitting defensive coordinators at other schools. Yeah. And he narrowed it down to 3 and then 2. And then ultimately Tom Allen was the guy he settled on. And, I think one of the things that was interesting when he was explaining it was that, he basically said, I'm never going to be like, when we talk about, the internal hires I've made, I always look from within first. Yeah. And some years it's feasible, some years it's not. And he felt like, but he did evaluate inside, and I guess that's probably where some of the concern people had was. But I never really felt like that was going to be the direction he decided to go. And then he says his process is always the same when it comes to going and getting a head coach. I'm sorry, getting another assistant coach. And this year, it just didn't seem feasible to promote from within. It just with how this season went, as far as you did not perform well defensively this year, just didn't feel like anybody on this staff really made sense as a hire or as an internal promotion. And there were clearly some better candidates that you could go and get elsewhere, and that's what he did. Had a list, and he got his guy. I think that was it was very obvious. Watching him, I think there were some angles that some media sites were able to post where you could see Tom Allen, and then you could also see Dabo as Tom Allen was speaking, kind of in the background, like a side view. And you could see, like, when Tom was like talking about his philosophy and stuff, you could see Dabo smirking, and like he was very, very pleased with himself. Like he knew the caliber of guy that he was able to land. He's confident in who he got. And so I think that was one of the things that was evident when listening to Dabo speak, and then also just watching his body language when Tom Allen was speaking, that this was the guy that he felt like he was the best for the job, and he's really excited about who he got. So, I mean, obviously you want your head coach to feel that way, but it was it was very, some coaches, aren't always as forthcoming with their emotions, but Dabo did not hide his
Right.
excitement
Yeah.
at
He
all.
didn't. He certainly did not hide how excited he was to have Tom Allen on the staff, and I thought it was really interesting that he kind of gave that insight on the process that he went through when selecting the next defensive coordinator for the Clemson Tigers. He talked about how many people that he reached out to, not to run names by them, but just to inquire, like, hey, who do you think the best defensive coordinators in college football are right now, right? And it sounds like that's how he kind of started off with the list, and that's kind of how his list developed. And he also used a lot of that information to narrow down his list from 12 to 10 to 5 to 3 to, to 2, and then obviously landing on Tom Allen. And, it was insightful to listen to his process. It was also something that something that he pointed out numerous times within the press conference, was how humbling it was for him as the head coach at Clemson to reach out to all these different people about the open job at Clemson and to receive feedback of just how highly thought of that position is held within the coaching ranks. I know fans have a lot of different opinions when it comes to the Clemson Tigers. Some people out there think that Tom Allen took a downgrade as far as a career step to come to Clemson. I would disagree, but there's fans out there that feel that way. But hearing Dabo talk about all the individuals that he spoke to about this position, the sentiment within the coaching community, at least, seems to be very different than some of the sentiments on Twitter and the rest of the college football community when it comes to Clemson and the level of regard the job is held at.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I have said it, multiple times. Like, Clemson is a destination place for coordinators.
Yeah.
Like that, it's no secret. And within the coaching space, Clemson is a very coveted job. Just to coach, especially coaching under Dabo Swinney. Like, if you get the offer, it's a very exclusive offer, so to speak. Because again, Dabo does not hire a ton of guys from the outside. And over the years, internal promotions were very common. So you didn't see a lot of the guys that did get opportunities to come into Clemson. It was a no-brainer. And with Dabo's philosophy on how he runs the program and how he treats his coaches, it makes it a very, very appealing job. On top of you're going to get paid top-end salary. So it was, I think, for Tom Allen, and it was very apparent, when he was talking, that just everything about Clemson made sense to him.
Yeah.
On top of the the family dynamics that were pulling him closer to the Carolinas anyway. So it made a lot of sense. And Dabo, I think his process when making this hire was, it made a lot of sense to me. I would pay a lot of money to see the list of 12 coordinators that he had around, to see what kind of names he had.
Yeah, I think we could speak for all Clemson fans when we say we wish we had that list of 12 defensive coordinators. I also wish I had the list of people that reached out to Dabo Swinney inquiring about the job on their behalf, or agents that did the same for the people that they represent. That would be an amazing list to have. No one will ever get it. No one will ever know who truly was on that list other than Tom Allen. But I mean, we can all speculate, but we'll never really know. But switching gears from Dabo Swinney and over to Tom Allen, which is really what the interview was about. His opening statement, you could tell. I mean, this guy, he's high energy. He's very passionate. He's detail oriented. He's very relationship driven with his players. He kind of laid out, like, I like to know what makes my players tick individually, so that I can know what buttons to press in order to get the best out of them. I thought that was really interesting. He laid out what he's going to be doing in the coming weeks, meeting with each individual defensive player on Clemson's roster and getting to know them on an individual level, not just a team meeting. So I thought that was super interesting. But just your thoughts on Tom Allen, kind of his introduction speech that he gave, and what your initial thoughts were just hearing him speak as the Clemson defensive coordinator for the very first time.
Yeah, man. I mean, to keep it short, I think he nailed it. I think he nailed the press conference. I mean, I think he said all the things that us as Clemson fans wanted to hear, as far as like his philosophy on defense. I mean, he was very blunt. He said, defense is a very simple. It's very simple. It's not easy, but it's very simple.
Right.
And he wanted to emphasize, intensity, physicality, takeaways, tackling, and hits. He wants to get tackles for a loss, like all the things that were the marks of the Clemson defenses of the past that led you to 6 playoff appearances, 2 national championships.
Right.
Like that was what we wanted to hear. So as much as I felt like okay, I feel pretty confident he's going to say a lot of the things that I want to hear from him. I don't think I could have wrote it up a script for him to say any better than what he did. I think everything that he put out there was just it meshed with everything that Clemson has been missing the past few years on defense. And I can't be more excited. One thing he did mention was red zone defense, which has been such one of the marks of the issues with Wes Goodwin's defense over the last 3 seasons. They could get stops, but when teams did move the ball on them and get into that red area, they were more than likely scoring a touchdown. That was apparent. Even in his best season last year, that was a problem. They surrendered too many red zone touchdowns.
Yeah.
So like all of those things, combined with, the hybridization of the nickel position and, the 4 down, the 4 down front and, just all the things and his emphasis on wanting to put players in their best positions. That's another thing. He talked about the example with Abdul Carter this past season. He played linebacker in 2023 for Penn State, but this past season made the transition to defensive end, and now he's going to be probably a top 10 pick.
Yeah, guaranteed. Yeah. He made himself a ton of money this season at Penn State.
Like those are the kind of things that him as a defensive coordinator, he's willing to make those changes and put guys not in a position where he thinks, it fits what I want to do better. It fits what makes them the best players they can possibly be. And we've talked about how many players we felt in this defense over the last few seasons that were not put in those positions. Barrett Carter, Andrew Makuba, Khalil Barnes. It feels like was a victim of that this past season.
Yes.
Trenton Simpson, like the guy, like extremely uber talented football players that took steps back from year to year because they were not in positions to succeed. So that was really exciting to hear as well.
Yeah. I think one of the things that stood out, and you touched on it, was him emphasizing that it is player driven, right? It is the talent that you have dictates the scheme that you run, not the other way around, right? And I think that's very important to have a defensive coordinator that's not only willing to do that, but capable of doing that and still producing at a high level, being able to mold and change his defense based off the personnel that you have in that given season. That's always going to be a hot commodity in college football, especially nowadays with the roster turnover that so many teams deal with. Now, Clemson does a great job when it comes to roster retention, but there's still turnover and they're still changing rosters every single year in college football. And the ability to evaluate the talent that you have on the roster and be able to identify what positions to put them in to not only maximize their talents, that ultimately also maximizes the defensive numbers and their ability to stop the offense from scoring points. So I thought that was really a key thing that he touched on. He's a guy that really likes to pressure a lot with the front seven. He likes to mix and match, likes to do a lot of different things. I mean, you mentioned it, but one of the most exciting things I think he's going to be able to see is what he does with that nickel hybrid position, who he kind of tabs for that position. It's going to be fun to watch what he does with the talent that is currently on Clemson's roster because, as most people know, the defensive side of the football is very rich with talent on Clemson. Yes, there are a couple holes, but there's a couple holes on every single team. For the most part, those first 11 guys that are going to run out there are top notch when it comes to the best of college football.
No, 100%, and that's what he talked about in his presser. He was like, we had really good talent at Penn State, but I know we're going to have really good talent at Clemson. And one of the things that he mentioned was that he didn't get to watch a ton of Clemson. I believe he only watched one game, which was the ACC championship game because they were preparing for SMU in the playoff. So I'm like, it's going to be kind of he's going to get a fresh kind of look at these guys. And that's what I'm excited about because now, a lot of things are like on the table now. And, maybe guys that weren't playing as well and, it can be, reevaluated with a fresh set of eyes and maybe put in better, positions to succeed. And that doesn't even always necessarily mean, changing position or moving, but, just utilizing them in different ways. And that's all that I wanted to see because it just, the last 3 seasons, you just felt, there were some successful, moments, but, there were guys that just flat out did not get better or they regressed or, they just were kind of out there. And now when you bring in a guy with a fresh perspective, no bias towards anybody, didn't recruit any of these guys, like he's going to be able to, bring that new perspective and kind of get a fresh start to this defense, but with some really, really talented pieces to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And he laid out exactly his methods for doing that. He's like, I'm a guy that spends a ton of time in the weight room because it tells me exactly who that player is as a person, how they respond to adversity, how intense they are. He said it tells him a lot about a player when he just sits there and goes to workouts and watches these guys do what they do and really push themselves when it comes to the strength and conditioning piece. So thought that was a really interesting tidbit from him as well. He also spoke on Jordan, obviously the family dynamics, the decisions, the family dynamic that went into him accepting this job at Clemson. Dabo Swinney kind of talked about in the beginning about the one guy that didn't reach out to him was Tom Allen. He had to reach out and gauge Tom Allen's interest in being the Clemson's next defensive coordinator. Obviously, there was mutual interest there, but he did have to reach out to Tom Allen. Tom Allen said that he wasn't really looking to go anywhere. But when he got the call from Dabo, it was kind of a no-brainer. For a couple reasons. The program that Clemson runs, how highly regarded these positions are in the college football coaching community, talking about Clemson coordinator positions. And then he talked about his daughters. He's got one daughter in Greenville. He's got another daughter in North Carolina, just over the border, I think. So they're both very close. And he got emotional a couple times talking about his wife and the sacrifices that not only she's gone through, but his daughters have gone through throughout his 30-plus year coaching career, and how much it negatively affected them at times and how much he contemplated on several occasions just going back and being a high school football coach and hanging up this college football coaching dream. And he said he's happy that he didn't, but when he received the opportunity to not only come to Clemson, but to also get his wife down here in Clemson, South Carolina, where she's going to be able to, be a short drive away from both of her daughters, her grandkids. His son's going to be here. Really seemed like a no-brainer for him.
Yeah, and that was a really kind of emotional moment in the press conference, and you could tell how much of a family-driven person he is, and that just when you when you talk about that and Clemson and how much those values align with how this program has been run under Dabo Swinney, it just you felt like it's like, yeah, this made a lot of sense. Like this is almost a perfect match. Like there's not really a whole lot of reasons to think this is a bad match. Like this looks like a no brainer. And he said that the people that knew me that know me weren't surprised that I made this move. And that's I think that says a lot. So I'm really excited. I think Tom Allen, I think he said all the right things. And again, got to preface this, like we're extremely positive and high on this hire, but again, there are no sure things in coaching. But this is
absolutely not.
This is probably the most just match made in heaven type of things, type of hires that Dabo has made, probably over his coaching career. Probably second only to Brent Venables. Brent Venables is probably as perfect of a hire as Dabo could have made, but Tom Allen is right there. And it's ironic that both of them were the defensive coordinators, but I'm excited about the fit, and I think that's ultimately that needs to be the first priority when you are evaluating a coach is would they fit in well here? And I think Tom Allen is going to fit in just,
I think it'll be a seamless transition when it comes to the culture piece as well as the schematic piece on defense. He does exactly what Dabo Swinney likes in a defensive coordinator. So, one of the media members also asked about, hey, was Matt Luke involved in this whole thing at all? And Dabo Swinney did divulge that he did talk to Matt Luke about the possibility of hiring Tom Allen and what he thought about him. And he went on to say that Matt Luke had nothing but great things to say about Tom Allen. And then Tom Allen revealed that he reached out to Matt Luke and asked, what it's like to coach on Dabo Swinney's staff just from an inside perspective. We talked about kind of how it's regarded within the coaching community, but having that first-hand knowledge from somebody that you've been on another staff with before and that and have a friendship with and trust, he reached out to him. And I thought that was an interesting piece of it. So shout out Matt Luke for the assist.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, and as far as perfect hires, I mean, Matt Luke is in that conversation as well.
Their paths to Clemson are eerily similar almost. Yeah. I mean, obviously, Tom Allen never stepped away from the game, but they were both previous Power 5 head coaches, and it didn't work out. And, they went to be coordinators. Matt Luke eventually stepped away and just needed a break. And Tom Allen obviously spent 1 year at Penn State and then came to Clemson. So their paths are somewhat similar. And I think the value that both of those guys bring to the Clemson coaching staff being prior head coaches is pretty huge.
100%. And, one of the interesting nuggets, and I guess this would be a good time to kind of transition because one of the things that they talked about was kind of the coaching structure that was going to be under place, with Tom Allen coming in. And there were some interesting tidbits about, Taj Boyd and Ben Boulware and Tom Allen's son, Thomas, coming in and being more involved as, hands-on coaches and all, recruiters. What were kind of your thoughts? Because I think it took a lot of people aback a little bit. They were like, okay, because, Ben Boulware was basically an unpaid intern this past year.
Right.
And, now Dabo's talking about him. He's going to be on the road recruiting, and he's going to be hands-on with the linebackers, along with Thomas Allen as an analyst, because I know Thomas Allen will be an analyst, but I'm assuming that going out on the road and recruiting means that Ben Boulware is now an employee of the university.
Absolutely.
I think it took a lot of people aback because they're like, okay, that's strange. And Tom Allen is not going to be out on the road recruiting. One of the things that I was able to pick up is that this is kind of a shift that a lot of schools are making, as far as the with the new rules about basically anybody can coach, and you can only have, but you can still only have like 10 coaches that go out on the road and recruit. Like there are a lot of schools that are now, keeping their coordinators out of the on the road recruiting apparatus, and replacing them with analysts, so they can be more focused on the team and coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So like what were your kind of thoughts? And you can talk about Taj Boyd as well, who will also be in a similar role on offense. Like what did you think about that? Because this is going to be an interesting shift, and it's something we're not used to talking about, because you've always just assumed that, oh yeah, your coordinators are going out on the road and recruiting and doing all this stuff, like on top of being a coach. But now their role has significantly changed with this new rule.
Yeah, look, I mean, certainly one of the most interesting pieces of information to come out of this press conference was Dabo Swinney just kind of casually mentioning that Tom Allen wouldn't be on the recruiting trail, and Ben Boulware is going to be out on the recruiting trail next week, and we're talking about it with Garrett Riley as well, and he's probably not going to be out on the recruiting trail, and it's going to be Taj Boyd in place of him. So sounds like in place of the offense and defensive coordinators, Taj Boyd's going to step in to that recruiting role when it comes to on-the-road recruiter. Obviously, the restructuring in college football happened this past season, where everyone can be on-the-field coaches. Everyone can coach. But you can only have 10 designated staff members that go outside of your university to recruit. It sounds like this recruiting cycle is going to be a huge shift when it comes to how Clemson has traditionally run their staff. Taj Boyd's going to be out on the recruiting trail, and Ben Boulware is going to be out on the recruiting trail in place of Tom Allen. So when Dabo first mentioned it in the press conference, I'm not going to lie, I was taken back. I was like, I had to like rewind it. I was like, wait, whoa, what did he just say? Because like you said, that's just always been the status quo in college football, right? Your coordinators go on the recruiting trail and they recruit. They are the quote unquote head coaches of their side of the football, right? So it's certainly a shift from what has traditionally been the standard in college football. But to your point, it sounds like there's a lot of universities that have moved to this model, Penn State being one of them, where Tom Allen's kind of coming from. Tom Allen did not go out on the recruiting trail at Penn State. He was also not the primary linebacker coach there. They had another guy step into that role. So what it sounds like to me is that's the shift that Clemson is going to at least try out this season. Does Dabo stick with it? I don't know. Initially, like I said, I was taken back. The more I think about it, I think the more I like it. I like the idea of your offensive defensive coordinator being back at Clemson, having adequate time to perform the duties that they have. They have a lot of responsibilities. And if it's going to look like that they're not going to be so bogged down with one single position group, and they're able to just kind of go back and forth between the position groups and coach their coaches, I think makes a lot of sense. And that's kind of something that Tom Allen mentioned in the press conference, was that he really liked that model last season of just being able to bounce from room to room, give his input, coach his coaches, and make sure that the way that he wants his defense to perform is being communicated in the right way at each position group and their coaches, right? So I think it's a little unorthodox at this point in college football, but it sounds like this is what's going to become the norm in college football. It's a more pro-style model where your coordinator is just your coordinator. They don't coach a position group necessarily. They do coach, but they're not set to one specific position group, and that's their guys. So sounds like that's the model that Clemson's going to. Personally, I think the jury's still out on it. I was taken back initially, but like I said, the more I think about it, the more I'm starting to like the idea of it and some of the benefits that could come from it. Because you do have those guys that can really mold and grow the position coaches with their knowledge, as well as you're growing younger coaches up. So I think it could be beneficial all the way around. As far as the two guys that are going to be out on the recruiting trail for Clemson this season, I don't think you could have picked two better guys. Two guys that are absolute massive names when you're talking about Clemson football. I don't think Ben Boulware or Taj Boyd are going to have any problems on the recruiting trail. They're guys that know how to build relationships. They're guys that know Clemson football through and through and can sell the program like none other. So I don't think there's going to be any step back when it comes to that. I don't think your recruiting would be significantly better if Tom Allen was on the recruiting trail instead of Ben Boulware for, the linebacker position or whatever. That's just my opinion. What were your thoughts when you heard it? Because I think all Clemson fans were a little like, wait, what? I saw a couple things posted on, message boards and Facebook groups and all over the place where Clemson fans were just kind of like not really giving huge opinions on it, just like, did we hear this right? Like, what's going on? So your thoughts.
Yeah. Basically, you hit the nail on the head as far as just kind of the concerns like that I initially came into my head, like, okay, this is strange, but especially from the recruiting angle, I think it makes a lot of sense in response to just the shift in what recruiting has become in college football. Gutterich had this comment that I really liked. He said, "No need in coming to my home. How much are you paying? I'll come to you." I think that emphasizes kind of recruiting in college football today has become a lot more transactional. I mean, relationship building still has a place and it still matters, but to get your foot in the door, you gotta come with cash now. And I think ultimately that's what matters more, than you're having your coordinator being a guy that goes on the road and is able to, recruit and sell the school. It really is, how much are you offering? And
right.
I'll come, I'll come visit, and then the coordinator, you can meet with the coordinator and all of that. So it's better to put honestly, it's probably better to put an analyst in that position, kind of an ambassador of the university, but not necessarily like one of your main coaches that are responsible for game planning week to week and roster construction and all of that. And so I think, from that standpoint, this shift, it's going to, like you said, it's unorthodox. It's going to be uncomfortable and strange to not have a coordinator, your coordinators going out on the recruiting trail. But, I think one of the things that is also, important is that, hey, your coordinators aren't going out on the road and building those relationships, but Garrett Riley and Tom Allen are household names in the football world. Like people know who they are. So, it's not going to take a lot of convincing to, there's not going to have to be that, I got to build rapport with a kid because he's not familiar with me, or his high school coach isn't familiar with me. Everybody knows who Garrett Riley and Tom Allen are. And especially in the Southeast, like Tom Allen has tons of connections in the Southeast. He spent a lot of time in Florida. People know his name, and obviously he's just a big name in the coaching industry as well. And, we've already talked about Garrett Riley. So like that, there won't be a problem there. And I think that's one of the things that made it so important to have two, experienced household name coordinators instead of, a Wes Goodwin that, just people don't know who he's not a household name in the football world. Like he had to go out and build those relationships.
Right. And he had never called plays prior to him calling plays at Clemson. And I think it's worth mentioning that Dabo Swinney is the closer at Clemson. He's the guy that you send in with the closing arguments. It's not Garrett Riley. It's not going to be Tom Allen. It's not going to be any coordinator that you hire. the guy at Clemson, the face of the program, the guy that sells Clemson is Dabo Swinney. He's the closer. So I don't think there should be a worry of any significant drop in recruiting. And I know what people are going to say as soon as I say that. They're going to talk about, oh, well, Clemson's recruiting dropped off this year. That is true. We did lose a ton of guys that were previously committed before signing day. However, that had more to do with NIL than it had with anybody's ability to close on the recruiting trail. That's just the fact of the matter. We weren't stepping up and paying enough money to get in the conversation, so guys left. And that goes to your point, Jordan, that you were just making about recruiting becoming a lot more transactional. It's essentially college football recruiting is essentially now tell me the number first. Okay, if it's a good number, I'll listen to your pitch, right?
Yeah.
So it's number first, and then it's, okay, tell me about your university, right? And if you don't reach a certain threshold of number, they don't even want to talk to you.
Right.
And it just is what it is. I don't like it. As a college football fan, I don't like that. But that's where we are in major college football right now. So
and the sad part is a lot of times it's not the kid. Like these kids just they have agents and other people in their circle that are dictating a lot of
telling
that.
them, yeah, you have to do this. And
so
there's some of those guys that buck the trend, and that's not their main focus. But for I think it's safe to say for the large majority of kids coming out of high school, that is the first priority. And it just is what it is.
Yep. 100%.
All right, guys. Quickly, before we move on to the next topic in tonight's show, we got 79 people in the live chat right now. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's awesome to have that many people when it's the off season. Thank you guys for showing up and showing out. Appreciate all you guys. We'll get to the comments as we get through the planned portion of the show. Got a couple more segments, and then we'll chop it up with you guys in the comment section. But before we get to the next segment, make sure you guys are checking out our very own Mark Rogers. He has published a book called Disputed National Champions, College Football's Historical 1990s Reset. Okay? It dives deep into the chaotic world of college football championship decisions during the 1990s. This pivotal decade reshaped the sports in unprecedented ways, leaving fans and experts alike questioning the system and legitimacy of the crown champions. So if that's something that sounds like you sound like you would enjoy, if that's something that you're interested in, it's a great read. It's a quick read. It's a really easy book to read. You can get it on Amazon for $9.99. You can get it on the Kindle app for 99 cents. Please go get it, guys. Read it. I promise you won't regret it. And leave a review and support Mark Rogers because he is the one that gives us this platform to chop it up and talk with you guys about Clemson football and college football.
Absolutely. And yeah, like you said, it's a short read, but it's chock full of information. And if you do, make sure you click the link in the description. And that way, it supports Mark Rogers. It supports the channel, supports us. And make sure that you leave a review if you do. So that would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. It will. And then also, guys, the Voice of College Football official X page, the best discussion, debate, and analysis with no off-season. Go check it out over on X. Give it a follow. I promise there's tons of good college football content over there that you will enjoy.
100%. Great follow. Stats, highlights, videos, insights, scheduling for the Voice of College Football Network. All of that can be found on the X account. So make sure you guys give it a follow.
Absolutely. And also, while you're over on X, go ahead and give Jordan a follow. He does a lot of great things over there on X, and I promise you won't regret following his page either.
Yep, right there under my name or
Right
my
there,
face.
guys. You can see it right there. All right, we're going to move right along into the next segment. All right, Jordan. Since the news cycle has been absolutely out of this world crazy for the Clemson Tigers since the clocks hit zero in that Texas game in Austin way back, feels like a million years ago, but it was just a couple weeks ago. We have had a crazy news cycle of defensive coordinator searches and rumors and plane tracking and roster retention and guys signing with the 110 Society. We haven't had a chance to do a 2024 season review. So here it is. Finally, January 15th, we're finally getting to the 2024 season review. Here we go. First and foremost, Jordan, one of the questions that I think have been pitched the most out there about Clemson's season: was the 2024 season an overall success, according to you?
Yes and no. And that seems like a cheating answer.
It's not, though, because I agree with you. It's yes with an asterisk.
Yeah. I think that's probably the best way to put it, because we felt like the goal for this team was winning the ACC and making the 12-team playoff would be a massive step in the right direction, and you did that. So right. I mean, in that sense, yes, it was a successful season. The asterisk, of course, and I'm sure a lot of you guys that are listening can feel our frustration and feel what we feel about all of the things that did not go well for this team this year. Obviously, you open with a 31-point loss to Georgia. You go through the season, and defensively, especially, you were just very much not up to the standard that you were used to. You get trounced at home by Louisville, a team you had never lost to before, and then, of course, losing your rivalry game at the end of the year in a heartbreaker, and essentially going 0-3 against the best teams you played in the regular season. That just, it leaves a sour taste in your mouth, and it's not up to the standard that Clemson and Dabo has set, and they know that, which is why you've seen the massive changes, from a program standpoint that you've seen just on the coaching staff, talent acquisition with really dipping into the portal for the first time. Like, you could tell that, well, there were a lot of things that were exciting about this season and positive about this season. The drawbacks and the negatives were unacceptable. They were unacceptable. And that's, of course, where the asterisk comes in. But on the whole, you won back the ACC. I think that was important. And I know a lot of detractors and rival fans will say, well, it's the ACC. But ultimately, that's always been the standard at Clemson is being an ACC contender, and that's what this program needs to be, moving forward in order to stay.
In all fairness, Clemson can only win the ACC. We can't go win another conference.
Exactly.
We're in the ACC, so
we're suing to get out.
I know there's fans out there that scoff at winning the ACC, but what else do you want Clemson to do?
If Clemson hadn't won the ACC, it would have been would have been trolled too. So it's like, okay, well, I mean, so all that to say is that that's always been, you won back the ACC, and also what was really important was you figured out that you have a quarterback. You found out you had a quarterback, and you figured out a lot on offense, a lot. This season was not perfect by any means offensively, but the massive, step up in production and explosiveness and Cade Klubnik's development, that was one of the key points of this season. And the fact that he took the jump that he did was really incredible. I did not, coming into this season, I did not imagine Cade Klubnik having over 4,000 yards of offense and over 40 touchdowns to just 7 turnovers. That is that was not in the cards. That's statistically one of the best seasons from a quarterback in Clemson history. That was not on my bingo card coming into the year. You know, we felt like, okay, Cade needs to be able to make the layups, and we'll see what happens beyond that. The introduction of two true freshmen, talented receivers, the return of a lot of your offensive line, and getting healthy. Like we thought that, okay, with this, and of course returning an all ACC tight end and running back. Like you felt like, okay, you have an opportunity to be pretty good offensively, but we did not expect Cade Klubnik to be your best offensive player. Like that was not what we were expecting. And so that was a massive success. And so, like, for a lot of reasons, this season overall was a success, but the negatives keep you from saying yes with definitiveness and not, okay, there's an asterisk here, because this team ultimately was not able to rise to the occasion when it mattered, except for one game, really.
Yeah.
And that was disappointing.
Yeah, and I mean, look, and I think that's the dark cloud hanging over what is the 2024 season for Clemson football, right? It's really the way that you performed in those losses, and the fact that you lost to 4 of the 5 best teams you played on your schedule, right? That has to be acknowledged. You get blown out by Georgia early in the season. You get dominated. And I know Clemson fans don't like when we say that, but dominated by a Louisville team. You got outcoached, you got outplayed, you got dominated in Death Valley. And then you frankly don't get the job done against South Carolina. Inexcusable. I mean, I don't know how far you got to go in the rear to find 2 home losses for Clemson football. So you can't lose at home twice in a season and there not be an asterisk on that season. Now, looking back to our preseason expectations for Clemson, they met them. They went to the ACC championship, they won, and they got to the 12-team college football playoff. That's what me and your expectation was coming into 2024. So they met expectations. So it has to be, was Clemson's 2024 season a success? Yes. But the asterisk is all the stuff that you talked about, Jordan. The unacceptable run defense that got trotted out on the field time and time again. The not doing enough to win the big games against the best teams you played. And outside of the ACC championship game in SMU. And losing twice at home. One of those being to your rival. That kind of stuff's unacceptable, right? So that's the asterisk that's on Clemson's season. But overall, I think you do have to consider the season, when you zoom out, an overall success. We hadn't been to the playoffs in, 4 years?
Yep.
So finally got back to the playoffs, and the offense looked significantly better. Not to mention Cade Klubnik. We'll get to him a little bit later. He's going to get his flowers for this season. I assure you of that. Jordan, the good and the bad. One thing each. The good and the bad from this season. If you had to pick one thing that's, hey, I hang my hat on Clemson, this is what went good, and then this is what went bad.
Good. I think the ultimate good from this season was Cade Klubnik.
Yeah.
I know we said we were going to mention him later, but I think Cade Klubnik, you're not in the position you are if Cade Klubnik does not take the jump that he did this year.
Not even close.
This is a very different team. If he's not, if 2023 Cade Klubnik was, this team probably loses 5-6 games. That might be an exaggeration, but you get what I'm saying. Like you wouldn't have won the ACC. You wouldn't have been in the playoff conversation. Like I don't think that without Cade Klubnik. And then the ultimate bad, I could say the defense, but like ultimately, like you just you weren't able to defeat the narratives that were, built up about you throughout that season, because you did not play well in the opener, and you got blown out in your home stadium by Louisville, and then you lost to your most hated rival. Like,
and the way you lost that game was
the way you lost that game too. Like, it just, I think that's the ultimate bad. Like, you lost the most important games outside of the ACC championship game, which they deserve credit for, but you nearly, gave that one away too. So, like, it just, this team was not able, as good as they were, they probably should have been better. Not even probably, they definitely should have been better.
Yeah, I mean, you went 1-4 in your biggest games.
Yeah,
that's not good enough.
No,
it's not. And I think it's all summed up with Dabo Swinney's statement at the end of the season, where he said, "We're good enough to get to the ACC championship. We're good enough to win. We're good enough to get to the playoffs, but we're not good enough to do anything past that." And that kind of sums up Clemson's season. They were much improved in areas. They regressed in a lot of other areas, but ultimately they're just not good enough right now.
Yep.
And that's
good, but not good, but not good enough.
Good, but not good enough.
Is the perfect way to sum up this season.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more, Jordan. Could not agree more. If you could pick the biggest area of improvement, one area, if you could wave a magic wand for a day, what would be the biggest area of improvement that you think would need to be fixed on this Clemson Tiger team?
Easily the run defense.
Run defense.
I can live. Honestly, I can live with the terrible special teams if you if you could stop the run this year. Right. Like, a lot of things would have taken care of itself, because I think ultimately your pass defense was as bad as your run defense was. Your pass defense probably should have been a lot worse, but you have such good players, especially at corner, that you really didn't get torched through the air this year all that much. And that was good to see. Like, and that was kind of a continuation of a trend from last year. Like, your pass defense was pretty strong, has been pretty strong the past couple of years, because you've recruited well at defensive back. Run defense, stopping the run, that's always got to be the first thing when we're talking about. That's one of the first priorities on either side of the ball when we're talking about the keys to winning a football game is stopping the run. Like, you could argue that's number one. And the fact that you couldn't do that against, not just like, it wasn't even just like you had a run of teams that were just really, really good running the football. No, a lot of the teams you played were not very good running the football. NC State, ran for a ton of yards on you. They were not a good running football team. Stanford ran a ton on you. They ended up not being a very good running football team.
No. The Citadel ran for more yards against you than they ran against any of their previous opponents last year.
Yes.
Like, in the FCS. Exactly. Like, come on, man. Like, if that doesn't tell you how piss poor Clemson's defense was when it comes to stopping the run, I don't know what does. And it's, to your point, it's inexcusable.
Yeah.
And that's not a word that we use a lot here on the channel, but like, it really was inexcusable. And Dabo said it numerous times during the season, which is why we started, as the season went on, the more we started feeling like he might be making a change at defensive coordinator at the end of the season, because he said it on several occasions. We're too talented to be this bad. And that's the truth. Look at the talent. Look at that defensive tackle room. Now, I know we were limited at the edge position. I got that. But there are ways to mitigate that. Yeah. Look at your linebacker room. Look at your defensive tackle room. Come on. You got to be better. You got to be better. Should
not have been as bad as it was, even with the limitations at defensive end.
And the fact that it didn't even remotely get any better, it actually got worse as the season went on, told you everything you needed to know about who was at the helm on the defense.
Yeah. I mean, watching Texas run for 292 yards on you in the first round, and then going and watching Arizona State completely shut down their run game.
What, they get 50-something yards?
Something like that. if that much.
Like 53 yards on the ground. I mean, come on.
In a game that went to overtime, by the way, multiple overtimes. Like you can't make it up, man.
You
Like
can't make it up. It's bad.
You're going to tell me Arizona State has better, front seven players than Clemson? More talented front seven players than Clemson? No, it's just definitely not the case.
No.
So it just.
Luckily for us, we got a new guy at the helm. His name's Tom Allen, and I look for him to rectify a lot of the deficiencies that we saw this past season on the defensive side of the ball, Jordan. So we'll definitely see. We'll see. I think he'll have a major impact, though.
Yeah, I believe so too.
Make sure you guys are checking out the main channel over with Mark Rogers, the voice of college football. He does a weekly show every morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday, the college football show with Mark Rogers. Go check it out. Hit the like button and make sure you let him know that the guys over on the Clemson channel sent you. All right, guys. With the season review done, it is time for grading the 2024 version of the Clemson Tigers, position group by position group, offense, defense, special teams, the whole nine. And then at the end, we'll give an offense and defense MVP and an offense and defense breakout player, according to myself and Jordan. Get in the comment section, guys. Give your letter grades for each individual position group with us as we go along, and we'll see whether we agree or disagree. So we'll have a little bit of fun with it. We're going to start off with the defensive side of the ball because these grades are going to be a little bit lower than the offensive side of the ball.
Probably.
So starting off, I'll start off with the defensive tackle group. I went with a B-.
That's mine too.
I think there was a lot of good in that group this past season. We had some injuries, obviously, that hampered a couple guys. When you think about DeMonte Capehart and some other guys that were limited at times. But overall, I think they performed okay. So I went with a B-. Probably could have went a little bit lower, but I was feeling generous. So I'll go B-.
Yeah, I'm with you. We had high expectations for them, and they did not meet them in a lot of ways, but not and not necessarily just because they didn't play well. Yeah, like you mentioned, it was injuries and stuff like that. But obviously taking Peter Woods out of the equation for a lot of the year and putting him at defensive end, and obviously him getting hurt at different points in the year certainly hurt. But teams weren't like running up the gut on you.
Right. It was the edge.
It was the edge. So but the one of the things that was different about this year as opposed to previous years was you just weren't getting a lot of pressure from that group. Like you didn't have a lot of talented interior pass rushers. Like they just, especially with Peter Woods not being there, like you just don't have a guy that's what DeMonte Capehart when he was like he has some pass rush moves, but he is very much a space eater dominant. Like he doesn't have a whole ton of moves.
He was having a really good season up until that ankle injury, and he never really recovered from that.
Right. And, Peyton Page and Trey Williams, like really, really good football players, but they're not like overly special pass rushers. Although shout out to Trey Williams, he got 2 sacks in the Texas game. He's now at Michigan. But that was not their game. And so you weren't able to get a whole lot of interior pressure, and which means you couldn't collapse the pocket without sending extra guys. Like that just that's something that when Clemson defenses have been great, that's something that they were they got really good production out of. When you had the Brian Brzezis and the Tyler Davises, and you had like those guys could get interior pressure. You just didn't get much of that. So I went with B- for them. Good, but not good enough, I guess. Probably
the theme for Clemson this year. All right, Jordan, what'd you think of the edge position, the defensive ends? What do you grade that group?
I'm gonna go D to D plus. The only reason it's that high is because of TJ Parker. Like, he's incredible. But
yeah, it's funny because if you could see my notes right now, I wrote my letter grade down and then I put in parentheses, not TJ Parker.
yeah, I think that's the perfect way to sum it up. Like, not TJ Parker, D plus. Like, they just were not good enough. Didn't get a lot of pass rush from anybody. I think Jaheim Lawson took some strides. I'll say that much. I think he did get better as the season went on. But beyond that, you had nothing. You got nothing out of that group behind TJ. And you couldn't set the edge. You were too small. Didn't have any guys that could, they just weren't. They could get vertical at times, but if obviously when teams are running stretch zone at you, you're not trying to get vertical. You're trying to
you're trying to set the edge.
Yeah, you got to move
which
laterally.
was impossible for anybody outside of TJ Parker, apparently.
Yeah. So they literally Texas's game plan was run away from TJ.
Yeah, run whatever side TJ Parker's on, we're running stretch zone the opposite way, and it worked every single time to the tune of almost 300 yards rushing. The story of Clemson's defense this year. So I will agree with you, Jordan. D at best. Again, parentheses, not TJ Parker. So if TJ Parker somehow stumbles along this, not you. You. You're fine.
Not you.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
Keep doing what you're doing, TJ.
We got you some help via the transfer portal, so we'll be good. All right, moving on right along to the linebacker group. Jordan, this is a group, and we've talked about it on the channel before, but this is a group that has regressed under the tutelage of a Wes Goodwin. And it's really unfortunate because the talent there has been very high in recent years. I mean, we've gone into a couple seasons now where we thought that we had one of the best linebacker groups in the country, and it never manifests on the field. And I'm not attacking those guys personally, so don't get me wrong, but when you saw the run fits this season, when you saw the poor angles, when you saw that we couldn't cover a wheel route to save our life, when you saw the missed tackles, it was a bad group this year. And I know they had their moments where they played really well, but for the most part, they underperformed greatly with the talent that was there. And there was a couple bright spots. Obviously, Sammy Brown came on towards the end of the season, started getting a lot more playing time. He's clearly going to be a big part of this defense moving forward. I think Barrett Carter had, another somewhat disappointing season, and I love that guy. He's a Clemson dude. There's none better as a ambassador of Clemson University. And I think he's going to have a successful NFL career. So don't get me wrong, but I think he was put in bad situations by his defensive coordinator. And that's just how I feel. But that group, I think greatly underperformed. I think they're probably a D plus, C minus ish, somewhere in that ballpark when it comes to the linebacker core. Where you got them at?
Yeah, I'm with you. D plus, I'm gonna go D plus because we had such high expectations for them. Especially for the starters. I mean, having Barrett Carter and Wade Woodaz coming back was huge. The addition of Sammy Brown, and you were, again, we did have questions about the emergence of some of the younger guys, and that just never happened. And so you had your two starters who already weren't playing up to their best that we've seen in their careers, having to play a ton of snaps. The only thing that keeps them from being worse is Sammy was really good, and when he played, good things happened largely. So, and that gives you some reason for optimism. It didn't help that, and it wasn't all just some of it was unlucky. Kobe McLeod tearing his ACL, I don't think I'm not a huge Kobe McLeod fan, but he was him being the first one to run out there. That was for a reason, and so you don't have him. Yeah, that messes with your depth, and you had to play some guys at times.
He was clearly third on the depth chart when it comes to linebackers.
So, that was unfortunate, but at the end of the day, like they just did not play up to the the standard. They poor run fits, honestly, some soft tackling at times, and it never really got better unless Sammy was on the field.
Yeah, and anytime at that position when you have the experienced guys that we had in that room, when a freshman is your best player and your leading tackler in most games, that's not good.
No.
That's
Sammy is
great.
a freak.
That's great for Sammy Brown.
Yeah,
but,
he's a freak, but
coming into the season, you thought you were going to get more from a Barrett Gardner and a Wade Wood-S.
Yeah, you didn't think you would have to ask him to come in the situations that he had to.
Right. But luckily, we got that guy on our roster, and he answered the call this past season, and he will continue going forward. All right, Jordan, switching gears, cornerback room. Where do you have the cornerbacks grading out this season?
Definitely going to be one of the higher ones on the defense. I'm going to go B. I'm going to go B plus, kind of that range. They certainly had their moments, but you didn't always get the best play out of them, but they were largely your most consistent position on defense. I would say you had guys that could cover. The emergence of Ashton Hampton was really good. And Avion Terrell, there's an argument going on in the chat about him. I thought Avion Terrell over the course of the season was pretty good. Now he had his moments where he didn't play well. The playoff game, I think he had one of his worst games, but
he did.
I don't think it was like someone was implying like it was a lack of effort or anything. Like, no, I mean, he's an undersized corner. He plays as well with his, God-given body physical abilities as I've seen come through Clemson, because that's a guy that you typically don't recruit to play corner, because he doesn't have super, rangy, he's not super rangy as far as his body. Like, he can run, but he just plays a lot bigger than his size. But again, he's still limited. He's 5'11", if that much. Like he's just not your typical boundary corner. Like that's just not what he is. And so he's going to get beat sometimes. He's going to miss tackles. But like I said, the emergence of Ashton Hampton was really, really positive. I was disappointed with kind of Jaden Lucas's, play at times, but I thought he was better than some people try to give him credit for. I think injuries have taken a lot out of him over, his career. But again, I don't think the corners were your biggest problem in most of the games. I think probably if my biggest critique was probably in run support at times. Like they just weren't always there. It wasn't always because the times where you did fit the run well, sometimes you still gave up a decent gain because the corners weren't where they were supposed to be in run support. So I don't know. I'm higher on the corners than I saw some people say. I saw like a C for the corners. I think that's a little harsh. I think, especially given the lack of help they got from the front seven a lot of the year.
Yeah, look, they were, to your point, they were far from perfect this season. But I think Clemson's in a good spot when it comes to corners. Did Avian Terrell have, some issues towards the end of the season, specifically in that playoff game? Sure, he didn't have his greatest game. But I think when you look at the totality of what he put on the field this past season, he put together a pretty good performance, right? Ashton Hampton came on at the end of the season, started looking really good. You mentioned Jaden Lucas had his struggles. And to your point, I think that's due to a lot of the injuries that he sustained. And he just not being consistently on the field, right? So that development is affected, right? But again, I had him graded out as a B. I think that's a fair grade for the cornerbacks. It wasn't a stellar year for them, but they were much better than the front seven of that defense this year. So I don't think they deserve too much hate. Last position group on the defensive side of the ball, and then we'll switch over to offense. The safeties. I had the safeties graded out at a B plus. I thought they played really well this season. RJ Mickens was probably the highlight of the defense, especially on the back end. When it came to this season, that guy left it all out on the field. I think he made himself some significant money this year, and he proved to be just a savvy vet back there that kind of was the air traffic controller, if you will, making sure everybody's in position. And he stepped up in a big way. So I had the safeties graded out as a B plus. Where'd you have them at?
I'm kind of right there at B. So like I think they were fairly consistent. I think one of the things that was you mentioned RJ Mickens. That's a guy that's going to be almost impossible to replace. I'm going to miss him greatly. But I think you had some struggles early in the year, kind of figuring out, kind of what you wanted to do there. With Khalil Barnes moving from nickel to safety and kind of moving him around, but on the whole, like your safety play was solid, and again, you didn't have too many games where you were just flat out getting beat over the top. Like that did not happen a lot this year. There were some probably their worst. I think the worst game for the safeties was probably I want to say Pitt. I don't think they played particularly well. That's probably the one that stands out to me. I don't think they played that was probably their worst game, especially when you were playing a backup quarterback. They were able to get some chunk plays on you. But like I think they were largely solid over the course of the year. I do have some questions, about that room moving forward, because you're going to be relying on so much youth next year.
A lot of talent, but a lot of unproven guys.
Yeah. So, but this year, I thought your secondary was probably overall was your best group on defense, and that's not normally what you say about a Clemson defense. And it wasn't for just that. Oh my God, your front seven was good, and your secondary was just better. It was your front seven was pretty lacking in a lot of areas, and by consequence, your secondary had to play a lot better in order for your defense to be even somewhat competent at times. So that's the disappointing thing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, shifting gears to, well, I guess let's give an overall grade of the defense. Where'd you have the defense grading out as a whole?
As a whole, and it probably doesn't. If you were to do if you were to relate the grades to like a number average, it would probably be higher than what I'm about to say. But just grading the defense as they played this year as a whole, it's got to be like a D. They were not very good. The run defense was inexcusable. I can't in good conscience even say C, because you met certain standard. You kind of met the standards,
right?
But you just flat out didn't. And, so D plus. I'll say D plus.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're definitely in that D plus, maybe C minus. But again, your run defense was so bad that you kind of have to put them down in the D range. So I think D plus is a pretty fair one. Let's go ahead and shift gears to the offensive side of the ball, starting off with the offensive line group. This is a group coming into the season, Jordan. We didn't really know what to expect. We knew, yes, Dabo Swinney went out and got a Matt Luke, a guy that's elite, absolutely elite at his position group, which is offensive line. Already mentioned former head coach. I mean, the guy is just probably the best offensive line coach in the country that you could have went out and got at that point in time, and Dabo goes and gets him, right? But again, our offensive line had been pretty bad. So our conversations all throughout spring and fall camp were, how much can we really expect them to improve in year one under Matt Luke? Well, the answer was quite a bit. Quite a bit. I think the offensive line was clearly not elite. They still have a lot to work on. They have a lot to grow. But I mean, can you give the offensive line anything less than a B plus? I mean, I know in situations they weren't great. I didn't quite want to go to an A, so I settled on a B plus. Very happy with the improvements that were made under year one of Matt Luke. We only lose one offensive lineman off of this roster. So you got 4 of the 5 starters coming back, plus guys, your 6th and 7th guy played a whole lot. Elijah Thurman, who, is going to be a guy in the rotation as well this season. You got a lot of hope there on the offensive line. And I think year 2 under Matt Luke is going to get a lot better, but I was super happy with the results on the field in year 1. I don't think any Clemson fan expected them to improve to the point in which they did. So I settled on a B plus. Where you got them?
I think that's a good grade. And I think if you grade on a curve, you could probably convince me to go A because, ultimately, like, especially in the first half of the season, this offensive line was playing as well as anybody's. Honestly, even in the first game against Georgia, I mean, you couldn't run the football, but Cade Klubnik did not get pressured a ton in that game. He was just kind of indecisive, and the receivers just flat out weren't getting open at times. So like, your offensive line wasn't even your biggest weakness against Georgia. And then, obviously in the games following that, they were pretty stellar. You were running the football well at that point. And Cade Klubnik had, time to throw, and he was able to create, even when he didn't. There was a lot of improvements. And I think towards the back half of the season, there was a dip, but I think it was, injury related, with, obviously you had guys go out of the lineup. Walker Parks, got hurt. Marcus Tate got hurt. Tristan Lay got hurt. So like you were getting into your depth. I mean, Elijah Thurman comes and starts his first game against Pitt, and he goes out in the first play of the game. And then all of a sudden you're having to move Blake Miller to left tackle and do all this offensive line shuffle. I think that affected kind of how they played towards the end of the year, and you couldn't really run the ball as well. But overall, just the improvements that they made, I think was honestly they exceeded expectations. So I say B plus, but grading on a curve probably get them to an A.
Yeah, no doubt. I think you probably could bump them up to maybe an A minus if you grade on a bit of a curve. But again, settled on B plus for them. All right, Jordan, moving right along. Tight end group. Where'd you grade the tight ends at for the 2024 season?
Tight ends, I went with A minus, B plus, A minus, kind of there. Thought you had a good 1-2 punch with Jake Brenningstool. I think Jake at times didn't play his best, and he still left a lot to be desired as a blocker at times. But the emergence of Olsen Pat Henry was really exciting. I'm excited about this group in general. You didn't have to burn Christian Bentaker's red shirt. So I think your tight end has played really well largely this year. I mean, they were not a lot of the problem, and when you did have problems. So I went B plus. That's the thing. That's where I'm going to go with. I think they were pretty good.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. The emergence of Olsen, you mentioned it. The emergence of Olsen Pat Henry, I think, was the highlight of the season in that tight end group. Not taking anything away from
Jake Brenningstool.
Thank you. Good Lord. Not taking anything away from Jake Brenningstool. Obviously he set the record this year. He had a really good season.
Yeah, he had a good year.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone saw Olsen Pat Henry kind of taking the steps forward that he did this season. Not only in he didn't get a ton of catches this season and really to display that side of his game. But I mean, the steps that he took forward in the blocking and just being a well-rounded tight end, I didn't see it coming personally. But excited that dude's on our roster, and he's going to be a contributor going forward. So I think B+ is a pretty good grade for the tight end group. Moving right along to the running back room, this is an interesting room, right?
Yeah.
Because really outside of Phil Maffa, there is nothing. You got your 1,100 plus yard back in Phil Maffa. I think he had a really great season, 8 touchdowns on the season. Cade Klubnik, obviously the second leading rusher on the team. That's not great, right? And he's not really what you would call a running quarterback, right? He'll use his legs, but he's not a guy looking to scramble a whole bunch, right? And then outside of those two, I mean, Jay Haynes, not very much run, and then behind him, pretty much nothing, right? Obviously, Jay Haynes hurts himself going into the playoffs, but he wasn't playing much anyway. So, I mean, it's really hard to grade this room. Phil Maffa had an amazing first part of the season, obviously battling the injury, his shoulder injury that he has to have surgery on in the second half of the season really hampered him. I think he would have had a much bigger season statistically. I think he would have been a lot more effective down the stretch. I mean, how many snaps did he play in the playoff game? What, like 5?
Felt like 5. Like
it didn't feel like he played very much, right?
He was
moving a wide receiver to running back, like you got problems, right? So, no, I don't think any disrespect to Phil Maffa and the way that he performed, but as a whole, when you're looking at that running back room, I think they probably graded out as, maybe a C+ on the season. Just nothing after Phil Maffa, and
I'm going to go
a problem.
Yeah, I'm going to go even a little bit lower. I'm going C- because Phil Maffa was very, very good, and he was a warrior, playing through a lot of pain for basically the entire season until he couldn't do it anymore. And the fact that you weren't able to get any of these running backs in a position to be more bigger contributors towards the end of the year, and basically forcing Phil Maffa out there, and using him in ways that didn't make sense considering his injury, like that. The running back room, I feel like was pretty poorly managed. Who that falls on, like, I'm not going to discuss that but like, that's the fact of the matter is the room was just not they were not in a good position this year, and they didn't put those guys in very good positions this year. So, and it was funny because then you get to the playoff game, and all of a sudden you have Jarvis Green, who you didn't see at all, catching a touchdown pass, and then you move Adam Randall to running back, he breaks off a 40-yard run, and you're like, okay, so you had these answers. You potentially had some answers, and you did not do anything to kind of get them ready, during the season when it was clear that Phil Maffa, like, it's not like his torn labrum was going to get better over the course of the year. Like, why wasn't there sort of a plan looking ahead in motion of, okay, we're not going to be able to lean on this guy as much, in the back half of the season. There's just no way.
And one of the most frustrating things is, like, Dabo goes out there every press conference and, like, acts like everybody's crazy for questioning Phil Maffa's health. Like, well, we watch a lot of football games. Like, we don't know football to the level that you do or any of your coaches or players do, probably, but we can clearly see that something's wrong with Phil Maffa. Like, we have to pivot to someone else, and they just never did. And the worst part is that's an indictment on everybody else in that room currently. Yeah. So,
and
Gideon Davis, we need you to come through, brother.
Well, okay. And one thing, selfishly, is this this probably gave some of our fan base a better appreciation of Will Shipley.
Yeah, for sure.
It was nice to have two backs that could give you, a high level of play, and not having him this year, and honestly, if you had your NIL situation in a better spot, like maybe you could have, like, maybe if you had, reorganized and done the things that you did to put yourself in a better position for player retention, like last year, you could have potentially gotten Will Shipley back for his senior year.
Yeah.
And he's doing his thing.
Or you could have got a Trevor Etienne.
Yeah. Could have gone to the portal.
You probably could have gotten him if you had enough NIL money.
Yeah.
Not 100% sure, obviously, but it could have happened. So,
clearly, that's my Will Shipley defense, because he got a lot of flack.
He did catch a lot of heat by the Clemson fans, uncharacteristically for a player of his level. Like usually, Clemson fans are very gracious to guys of his caliber, but Shipley rubbed a lot of people the wrong way several times at his time in Clemson. I still love the guy. I think he was a great Clemson Tiger, but he definitely caught he caught some heat rounds from the fan base at numerous points in times in his
passionate player, and he was a leader. He was a leader, and that
very
was
passionate. You cannot question that guy's will to win. He wants to win football games, and he is willing to do anything and everything to try to make that happen. So you could never question his effort or his will to win. That's for sure. But shout out to him. He's hopefully he gets some bigger opportunities in the NFL than he's getting right now. All right, moving on, Jordan. Wide receiver is next on the list. Where you got him ranked, or where you got him graded?
Yeah, wide receiver. I got to go A- to A. This was this was arguably, one of the best groups on the team. They had their moments where they didn't play as well, but they were very much largely met expectations. We had really high hopes for this group, and they met them. With the true freshmen, wide receivers coming in. The only drawback was you didn't get them going sooner. You didn't play them really at all against Georgia, but and of course Antonio Williams being Antonio Williams was great. You had options this year, and that was fun. Like a guy couldn't play a game. Okay, well, you still have Troy Stellato gave you really good snaps this year. Hate that he's gone. Cole Turner at times. Like Cole Turner, people hate on Cole Turner, but he gave you some sparks this year. When
that's because he's a Dabo Swinney legacy guy. That's why.
They just automatically it's PTSD, but not every legacy take that we've gotten is just does not deserve to play. I like Cole Turner, and I think he has a function in this offense. People don't, but if you're not a stud, true number one receiver type, you're not good in the eyes of some people. But which is not in Virginia Tech game, that his touchdown catch when your offense was doing absolutely nothing, he sparked that run, and ultimately won you that led to you winning that football game. He had created some explosive plays. I wasn't always just in the receiving game. He was a great he was a great option, reverses, jet sweeps. He's not that is a function that he has. He's fast. People, when they were saying he's the fastest football player on the team, wasn't an exaggeration. That kid can run. He's a great athlete. He's a great person to have on the. I didn't mean to turn this into a Cole Turner defense, but
no. And look,
I love Cole Turner.
He doesn't have to be a starting wide receiver on the team to contribute significantly to the offense. He can have his pockets of where he helps the offense and produces. And I saw a couple people mention in the chat, we didn't even have Tyler Brown at all this season.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I landed on an A for this wide receiver group. I thought it was a complete 180 for that group. I called it in the offseason. You did as well. Antonio Williams was everything we hoped he would be, coming off that full injury season, essentially, that he had. Tyler Brown's on that same. He's on the Antonio Williams plan right now. Breakout freshman year, hurt your sophomore year, and amazing junior year. Tyler Brown's going to do that next season. Just wait for it. A lot of people forgot how good Antonio Williams was until this year because he spent all last year hurt. Same thing for Tyler Brown. But Antonio Williams was just, I mean, like that dude, the fact that the 110 Society got it together enough to get him to come back, that's huge, man. You start looking at that wide receiver group, and I know this isn't a forward projecting grade. This year it's an A. But outside of, this year being really special and the turnaround and the addition of those young freshman wide receivers and how they contributed in a big way, because without them, it wouldn't have been what it was this season. So shout out to TJ Moore, shout out to Brian Wesco. But the guy this season was Antonio Williams. So I graded him an A, and looking forward, the future is extremely bright for that wide receiver group. Cade is going to have a lot of fun throwing to that group of wide receivers next season.
Yeah. And one thing that people don't, and these guys this is still a really young group. Like they, outside of Antonio, I mean, he's going to be the grandpa of the group, but everybody else has tons of eligibility. Like, Brian Wesco and TJ Moore, they still have two more years minimum, but I think both of them are probably 3-and-done players because they're first round talents. But like Cole Turner, people forget he redshirt. He got his year back. Like he was basically a sophomore this year.
Right.
Like he's going to have a lot of eligibility. Really, he was basically a redshirt freshman this year because he redshirted in 2022, and then he got his 2023 back because he was out for a lot of it. Like,
so essentially, this was his first year wasting. This was his first time wasting a year of eligibility. So he's got 3 more seasons with the Tigers if he wants that.
And he can only get better. Like he doesn't have to be a starter for you, but he's a great utility player, great player that when you need an explosive play. Like he's a guy that can go do that
as a change of pace to kind of, do something different to the defense. While they're
turned this into a Cole Turner hype show. While
they're looking over here at TJ Moore and Antonio Williams, Cole Turner's over here doing something else, right? So can definitely be a contributing member.
Tyler Brown is going to get this year back. Like, so, and he's got, and obviously we have our thoughts on how good Tyler Brown is. Like the wide receiver room is only, looking up. And then, the additions of Juju Preston and Marquise Henderson obviously are, those guys won't have to come in and contribute right away. I said Marquise Henderson. I found out it's Marquez. It's Marquez.
Yeah, Marquez.
Yeah. I did not know that until not a press conference. It was a media thing. The early enrollees, like it was like a Twitter or Instagram post that the football team made, that introducing the new enrollees. It's Marquez Henderson. I had no idea. I've only ever seen that name as Marquise, so I've been saying Marquise. So Marquez, if you're listening, which I know you are, then my fault. Anyway,
our bad. Yeah. All right. Last position on the offensive side of the ball, and then we'll transition to special teams. The quarterback position. I think this one's pretty easy, Jordan. I landed on an A. Cade Klubnik absolutely transformed into a completely different quarterback in 2024. That's the only thing you can say about it. Yeah. Clearly, whatever he did in the offseason, he talked about it a lot in the offseason about how he did various things to improve and how he talked to different people, and he did a new approach on things after talking to the Mannings and things like that. Clearly, whatever he did worked. He posted some great numbers this season: 3,600 yards in passing, 36 touchdowns, another 7 on the ground, almost 500 yards rushing. Absolutely lights out, man. This is the Cade Klubnik that we thought we were getting when we recruited him out of Westlake, right? This is the guy. An absolute playmaker. He used his legs so much more this season, and not just for the sake of doing it, but he picked his moments, and it was really effective, and it changed how this offense looked in the eyes of a lot of defenses, because suddenly defenses really had to start respecting him for his athleticism. So I can't say enough good stuff about the guy. I think he's going to take another step forward next year. He's obviously going to be in the preseason Heisman talk just because of his numbers this past season. And you look at the quarterback landscape over college football. But I had him marked down as an A. Next year, hopefully he's an A+.
Yeah, I'm with you. And he exceeded all expectations that I had for him this year. And he got it. After that Georgia game, we had our questions. Like, yeah, he didn't play nearly as bad as his 2023 version of him probably would have in that game. But we were still like, okay, it seems like he's a little better than last year. Like he's certainly not turning the ball over the same way, and he looks a little more comfortable, but he still didn't look all that comfortable against Georgia, and we were wondering. But then obviously the App State game happened where he put together one of the best quarterback performances in school history,
right?
And then it just took off from there. And I think obviously the NC State game was the moment we were like, okay, yeah, this is a different player.
Right.
And wasn't perfect by any means, but he got better over the course of the season. When in a situation where he was losing guys, his offensive line was shifting. Obviously, he didn't get to lean on Phil Maffa as much, but he made things happen when things weren't.
He did.
And I think that was the biggest growth from this season. And obviously, he put together a hell of a performance in the Texas game. I mean, he gave you a shot.
Right. That was his exclamation point on his 2024 season.
Yeah.
Was the way that he played against a really high level Texas team who had only allowed 4 passing touchdowns all season, and Cade just casually walks in to their stadium and throws 3 touchdown passes, and basically willing Clemson into a shot at winning that football game. Obviously, it didn't work out, but that was his exclamation point on the season.
Yeah, 100%. And it's a good jump off spring point, whatever you want to call it, for next year. And I can't be any more excited about getting to see him play. I can't say enough good things. And it's nice to just be comfortable where you are at quarterback for the first time in a long time.
Man, it feels good. Going into a season where you got a guy at quarterback. That feels good because it's been a while. It's been a while for the Tigers.
Yeah.
But all right, offensive overall grade, and then we're moving on to special teams, Jordan.
Yeah, offense overall grade gets a B+. They took massive steps from last year. And again, while it wasn't perfect, they gave you a lot, and they were your best position group. They were your best side of the ball by a significant amount. And and with a lot of this group coming back, I mean, you can only be, extremely excited to see what they could potentially be in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. B+ for the offense. Couldn't be more excited about the growth, not only from the players, but also Garrett Riley. I think you got to shout out Garrett Riley and the growth that he showed as a play caller in year 2 at Clemson. Obviously, he had more talent to work with, but I think he also grew. So shout out to him. All right, moving over to the special teams. Punter, D minus, F.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, F for the punter.
Screw it. Yeah,
was
I'm
bad.
going F.
I mean, I don't know what else to say other than if we got a punt over 30 yards, we were like, oh yeah, that's great. That's better than we normally get. He had a pretty decent season a year ago in 2023, but really regressed. And that's still a huge question mark going forward for Clemson because Jack Smith, who has been behind him for 3 seasons, not been able to beat him out, that's going to be the guy next year. I don't really feel good about that. So hopefully Clemson can address the punter situation at some point. But as far as the 2024 season goes, it was an F. It was abysmal.
Yeah. 100%. Got to go with you. F just was not – it was painful.
All right.
I'm glad the offense was much better this year because you would have had to watch a lot more punts.
Yeah. All right. Kicker, what you got?
Kicker, A- to an A. If we're grading the actual kicker, obviously,
yes,
his block.
We can grade the protection next if we want.
Yeah,
but I'm pretty sure everybody knows where that grade is. That's an F along with the punter. The only special teams that might have been worse than the punter was the protection on kicks this season. And that's saying a lot. So,
definitely says a lot. But he made them when he did get good blocking. Nolan Hooser, he knocked him down, and obviously the kick to send Clemson to the playoff was and win the ACC. That was
he didn't.
I'm gonna remember that forever. So
I mean, historic kick in the ACC championship game, and to his credit, he didn't miss any kick that wasn't blocked.
Right.
So, can you really give him anything less than an A? I don't think so. He's a freshman kicker that walked in one of the most high-pressure situations you could put a kicker in and just winked at the sideline over there to Dabo Swinney and then just casually nailed a 56-yard walk-off field goal to give Clemson yet another ACC championship. So, I think he gets an A. The protection's not his fault. So, I don't think you can hold the 47 block field goals against him. Clearly, he's not the one up there blocking. He's just trying to kick the ball. So I agree with you. A for the kicker, F for the protection.
Yeah, F for protection. Just never should have that many block kicks in a season. Ridiculous.
Somebody in here said, Tig said anything lower than an F. If it was possible, that's what the protection would get.
Yeah. Terrible,
whatever worst grade there is.
If you have to move your kick 1 yard, another yard, and make it more difficult for your kicker, just so you have the opportunity to get the kick off,
right?
Like that's
Remind people that our protection was so bad that instead of kicking a 55-yard field goal to win the ACC championship game, we had to kick a 56-yard field goal, and they still got pressure.
Yep.
So, good thing we did back it up a yard. It probably would have got blocked and returned for a touchdown. But I guess shout out to whoever made that call. But yeah, to your point, like enough said. You got to move your kicker back because you can't protect. I mean, better get it fixed this offseason. I can tell you that. Better be a point of emphasis in spring. I don't know who's setting the protection, who's teaching it, but it's wrong. Yeah. However you're teaching it is wrong. So big F there. Got to figure some things out. Let's move on to some season awards, Jordan. Like I said, we're going to do an offensive MVP, defensive MVP, and then a breakout for each side of the ball as well. Offensive MVP, who you got?
Pretty easy for me, Cade Klubnik. He's most valuable. You don't have the season you do without him.
100%, yeah.
Cade Klubnik.
I agree. I think that's the only way you could go there. Cade Klubnik he was the guy, and he grew a ton this season. So obviously he's going to get the offensive MVP. Defensive MVP for me, R.J. Mickens. I think he was the guy that was overall on the defense the most consistent guy, game in, game out. You knew exactly what you were going to get, and he had a pretty spectacular season, I think. So R.J. Mickens is the MVP on the defensive side of the ball for me. Who do you got?
That's a really good pick. I'm going to go with T.J. Parker.
Yeah.
I think those two were just, those were your best defensive players this year overall, just in terms of consistent play. TJ, first double-digit sack season since 2018 for Clemson. Enough said. Tons of tackles for loss. He had like 5 forced fumbles. I don't know if it was that much, but he broke the season record.
Yeah, it was crazy. He had an amazing season. I got no issues there. I think that makes a lot of sense. All right, offense breakout player.
That's going to be a tough one. I think there's 2 obvious ones, and then there's one that it was kind of off the radar. It's because he didn't have a ton of effect in the stat sheet. But I'm gonna go with Bryant Wesco Jr., but slightly. Between him and TJ, it was right there. It was right there. But I think Bryant Wesco, I think he came on sooner, and I think that's that's why I have to give it to him.
Right. I see your struggle, especially towards the end of the season.
TJ certainly he had his
As Moore really got going, TJ Moore really got going. You saw like, oh, this dude's about to be special, and can't wait to see the season he puts together. But I think if you're looking at the season as a totality, I think you got to go with Bryant Wesco, just because of the overall season he put together. But yeah, the back half of the season where TJ Moore really started coming on, it was special. But I went with Bryant Wesco as well. Defensive breakout player, I think this one's pretty obvious as well, is Sammy Brown. That dude, as advertised, came in physically ready, picked up the defense with no problem, and just absolutely ball. I mean, how many times – I didn't even count. Maybe somebody in the chat knows. How many times did he lead the defense in tackles this season? It had to be like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
And the games where he actually got –
over the back half of the season, he pretty much led the team in tackles every game.
Yeah.
He didn't get a lot of playing time in the front half of the season. But the back half of the season, I mean, the dude led the team in tackles. He led – nope, not going to go there. Nope, I'm leaving it.
It's going to rehash some.
You know where I'm going, and I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to leave it there. Sammy Brown is my defensive breakout player of the year.
Yeah, I got to agree. Sammy Brown. If I had to go with somebody else, it would have been Ashton Hampton. But I think Sammy was just every time he played, good things happened.
Yeah, I think Ashton Hampton's a good honorable mention for breakout player. I think that's a good list. Any other highlights or anything you want to point out for the 2024 season before we move on and talk about the upcoming national championship game, Jordan?
Yeah, the third guy I was thinking about on offense was Olsen Pat Henry. I would have he would have been, but he didn't have the stat. I couldn't reward I couldn't reward being a great blocker over over 1,400 yards combined between Wesco and TJ. I just couldn't do that. But he would have been my honorable mention, I guess. Second honorable mention.
For sure. I couldn't agree more. All right, guys. Make sure you're checking out Clemson Live over on all your audio platforms, wherever you get your podcast. Go check us out. Search Clemson Live. Give us a follow. Rate, review. All of our long-form content are over there on all your audio streaming platforms. So go check us out and help us out with that.
Yep. Go check them out wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, Jordan, we got a big game coming up, 20th of January. This coming Monday is going to be the national championship game for the inaugural 12-team playoff. Both teams that made it to the championship game did not have a bye. They did not win their conference, but they find themselves in the national championship game. Again, that's Ohio State and Notre Dame facing off this Monday, January 20th, in Mercedes-Benz Stadium down in Atlanta, Georgia, to figure out who is going to hoist the 2024 National Championship trophy. One quick note before we get started. Why are we still playing college football championship games on Monday? I'll never understand it, but whatever. I digress.
That's a great question, man.
I absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
Absolutely hate it. Monday is not a college football day. Why can't we play our national championship on Saturday? I don't understand. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it don't bother anybody else, but it bothers me. I'll never understand why the biggest game in the sport is played not on a college football day. I'll never get it.
I don't get it either, man. But yeah, I'm still excited for this matchup regardless. Ohio State, Notre Dame, two teams that Clemson has certainly had its fair share of history with in recent years. So there are probably people on both sides of the aisle on this one.
Yeah, we should do a quick poll for the chat real quick. Go ahead and type into the comment section who you're pulling for. Not who you think's going to win. You can put who you think's going to win too, but who are you pulling for in this game, or do you not care? I'm just curious what the chat has to say about it. But I mean, obviously, Jordan, Ohio State comes in as an 8-point favorite. It started as a 9.5-point favorite, got betted down to 8 points. It opened up at 46.5 points. Now it's down to 45.5. Clearly, most, if not everybody, are picking Ohio State to win. That's the overall favorite to win. Everybody thinks that their offense is too much. What's your kind of feel on this game? How excited are you to watch it? I know you'll be watching it. I'll be watching. I'm sure most people in the comment section, even if it doesn't involve our Tigers, I am a college football fan. I love college football, so I watch games when it has nothing to do with Clemson. I just enjoy watching college football, so I'm excited about this game. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, certainly Ohio State is considered the overwhelming favorite. It's an interesting matchup because I think some people are still trying to shed kind of this idea they have of Notre Dame. It's not so much about Ohio State. It's just it's hard to look past. It's Notre Dame in a national championship game, and in a big game, and there's still that stigma from really the last last 30 years or so of Notre Dame playing in big time bowl games, national championship games.
Up until this season, they hadn't won any of them.
Right.
So they broke the streak earlier in the playoffs this year. But yeah.
But and also I think it's hard for people to separate this Notre Dame team from even the recent Notre Dame teams like under Brian Kelly and even the first couple of years of Marcus Freeman. This Notre Dame team is built like some of the SEC teams that people love to tout. Like as far as the construction of their roster, this is not the Notre Dame team where it's like, okay, they have a bunch of under recruited guys that they developed, and they certainly have some of those, but like Notre Dame is they have legitimate athletes, like high caliber athletes. And that's why I think they match up better in this game than people want to give them credit for. I do have questions about their ability to score because I think that Ohio State's defense is the most complete that they've played. I think Georgia's had some issues this year at times. They were still very good, but they had some issues. I think Ohio State's defense has been was better than Georgia's this year. And so I think that's where I'm really interested to see how they respond, because they responded well after the first half against Penn State, another really good defense, and they put up 24 points in the second half, or 27 points in the second half. No, 24 because they had a field goal at the end of the first half. But so like my thing with this matchup is ultimately if Notre Dame can generate offense in this game, I think they have a real shot at winning.
Yeah.
And if you look at the past couple of matchups that Marcus Freeman-led Notre Dame teams have played against Ryan Day's Ohio State, they were really competitive in both games. The first year they went up to Columbus with a really limited team, and they hung around for a really long time in the game. I think the final score was like 21-10, but it was a competitive game for most of it. And Ohio State really couldn't get much going offensively. And then last year, they probably should have beat Ohio State in South Bend. I don't know. This Notre Dame team, I think, can get the job done. Now, will they? I'm not ready to go there. I think Ohio State wins this football game, but I think it's a close game. I think both defenses play at a high level. The total was what, 40? You said it was
45 and a half.
45 and a half. Yeah, so they don't think this is going to be a very high scoring game.
No.
I think both defenses are really, really good, and it's going to be tough for either team to really score, especially since Notre Dame can just flat out, both teams, but especially Notre Dame can just flat out cover. So it's going to be tough tough sledding for both teams to really generate a ton. And I think they're both going to have a really good game plan, but I think Ohio State pulls it out. They make enough plays. I'm going to go Ohio State 27, Notre Dame 20.
I like it. Look, there's a lot that's intriguing about this game. Obviously, like them, hate them. You can't deny these are two of the bigger brands in college football. Extremely big brands in college football. And personally, I have my issues with Ohio State. It's well documented on this channel. I had some family growing up that were big time Ohio State fans, and I've hated them ever since. But anyways, this is gonna be a great national championship game, I think. Like I said, two huge brands in college football, two defenses that play at an elite level. I think Texas last week kind of showed somewhat of a blueprint to limit the Ohio State offense. You're not going to shut down the Ohio State offense, but if you can limit them enough, I've heard a lot of people talk about this game, and points are going to be important, especially for Notre Dame in this game. They have to limit that Ohio State offense. If this Ohio State team goes for 28, 31, 35 points, Notre Dame can't keep up with that. They don't have the offense in order to produce in that way, I don't think. Riley Leonard, the Notre Dame offense hasn't thrown the ball at a high level this year. They're a big run team. They're a big control the ball. They obviously produce some explosive passing plays to get to the national championship when they played Penn State, but that's not really their MO, right? So they're going to have to be very effective in the running game, running the ball against Ohio State. How much success will they end up having? I think will go a lot in dictating how this game goes. Are they able to duplicate some of the things that Texas did to Ohio State's offense? That'll be another big key in knowing how this game goes. One of the big differences, though, is Texas played a ton of zone coverage against Ohio State, and it worked. Notre Dame does not play zone coverage. They're pretty much a man team, not 100% of the time, but
a lot of the time, yeah.
Most of the time. The vast majority, they are a man team. So do they continue with that? Or do they pull some of the stuff out of Texas's game plan in order to limit their offense? I don't know how Al Golden's going to settle on it. I don't know what their game plan. Maybe they mix it up. Maybe they do some of their man stuff that they do really well, that they've done at a high level all season. That worries me because of I mean, just look at that Ohio State wide receiver room.
Yeah.
Everybody done forgot Emeka Egbuka plays for Ohio State because of, they got the young freshman Smith over there just taking the top off of every defense that he plays against, right?
He's a freak, dude.
They got like 3 NFL wide receivers just running around, probably more than that. 6 or 7 NFL wide receivers over there.
Darnell Tate.
They just roll them out, next one up, just throw another NFL wide receiver out on the field. So that worries me when it comes to Notre Dame and the man coverage that they like to play. But, maybe they show some man coverage pre-snap and then switch to a zone post-snap and vice versa and try to confuse Will Howard. Other thing, they're going to have to pressure Will Howard. They cannot let him sit back there and pick their defense apart. I know their defense is played at a high level. They got to pressure the quarterback. They got to speed up Will Howard. They got to make him uncomfortable and make him throw balls that he doesn't want to throw, right? Confuse him. So can they do all that? I don't think so. At the end of the day, I think there's an avenue for Notre Dame to keep it close. Could they win this game? Yeah, absolutely. We've seen enough national championships at this point to know that the game can go any way, regardless of preconceived notions heading into the game. If you just want to travel back to Alabama Clemson 2018 national championship, listen to the commentary leading into that game. Clemson had no shot, basically. It was the best Alabama team, blah, 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 and they got beat 44-16, right? Yep. Was Clemson that much better than Alabama? No. But that night they were, right? So, again, this is college football. Anything can happen. But ultimately, I think Ohio State gets the job done. I'm going to go somewhere 24-17, Ohio State winning the game. I do think Notre Dame is going to do some things that limits Ohio State's offense, but ultimately, I think they both have great defenses, but Ohio State's offense is far better than Notre Dame's offense. And for that reason, I think you have to pick Ohio State to win the game. So I'll go 24-17, but I just hope that it's a really good game.
Yeah, me too. Now, and like you said, there is an avenue where this game could go any which way. Like that could Ohio State. I would not be surprised if I woke up tomorrow and Ohio State won 35 to 14 or something. Like, 100%. Would not surprise me. Yeah. But I do think this Notre Dame team is different from other past Notre Dame teams, and I think they're going to be ready. They're going to be ready for the moment. I just think Ohio State is. Offensively, they just have too many weapons, and they're going to make enough plays in this game. But I'm rooting for Notre Dame. They have it would be cool. They have a former Clemson player, on the team, like in Bo Collins. So that's a fun thing to root for. Obviously, I think Marcus Freeman is a lot more likable personally than
I was going to say that. Like, if you're looking at the two coaches. It's a lot easier to pull for Marcus Freeman than Ryan Day.
Yeah.
Just look at their press conferences. It's much easier to pull for the guy. And you mentioned Bo Collins. I'd like to see Bo Collins win a national championship. I would have much rather seen him win one with Clemson, but hey, it is what it is. He is a Clemson guy. He graduated from Clemson University. I wouldn't mind seeing him hoisting a national championship trophy.
Yeah, me neither. But
if we can't win it, it might as well be a Clemson guy winning it.
Yeah. So
there ain't no Clemson guys on Ohio State. So
for those reasons, we will be Irish fans.
Yeah, I'm definitely rooting for Notre Dame. I'm not a huge Notre Dame fan. I don't think I hate them like some people do.
Yeah.
I don't really have any feelings, I guess, towards Notre Dame. Like they are what they are.
Yeah.
But I do towards Ohio State. So, it's very easy for me to pull against them. So I'll definitely be an Irish fan on Monday night. But the football guy in me cannot pick Notre Dame to win this game. Sorry, Irish fans.
Yeah. Shout out to Will, friend of the show. Does great work over on the Notre Dame channel. So y'all will go check him out.
Go check out the Notre Dame channel, Will over there. Don't hate us, Will. I know we picked against you, but we're rooting. We're rooting for Notre Dame. That's what matters, right? All right, that's how we see it going down, Jordan. I think that'll do it for the planned portion of the show. Man, this show went crazy long tonight.
Yeah.
But I think that was expected. We had a lot to talk about. Anytime we do a season review or anything like that, those shows go long because we talk about so many different players and aspects of the team. So um, everything is looking up for the Clemson Tigers. I think you have to feel really good about the offseason thus far. The addition of Tom Allen, the addition of all your guys that could have left that didn't, the retention of your roster, the 110 Society finally getting their act together. Hopefully it continues. And yeah, I'm ready to keep rolling into spring and see how we look and keep going.
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, this has been it's been about as positive of an off season as you could have asked for. I mean, and you mentioned it, and on top of retaining your guys and the obviously the big defensive coordinator hire. You made you're finally taking the portal seriously, and obviously there's some exciting talent coming in your freshman class, even though it wasn't what we hoped it would be. You still have some players that you're really excited about. And so far can't be, you can't complain too much with how this offseason has gone so far.
Yeah, definitely not.
All right. I think that's going to do it for us. There's not anything. Yeah, that's it, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's all
right.
we got. Off to the comment section. Answer a couple questions, and then we'll get up out of here.
Yep. We had a couple start. There were a lot of you guys asking about DeMonte Capehart. Yeah. Dabo talked about in his press conference. They're still waiting on the NCAA.
Yeah. Essentially, he's coming back if the NCAA grants his waiver.
Yeah.
If they don't, he's obviously got to go to the NFL. So currently enrolled in class, currently working out with the team, awaiting or pending the NCAA's decision. They let everybody else have another year. I don't know why they wouldn't let DeMonte Capehart have one. But
yeah,
whatever. We'll just sue them if they don't. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, John answered that too. John says, so what will Boulware's new position title be if he's out recruiting like Taj will be? He has to be an official employee. Yeah, I would assume so. I believe that he's coming on as an analyst. Like that would be, or like an assistant linebackers coach or something.
Yeah,
whatever you call it. Like that would be his title. We already have a couple of guys under that title, if you want to call it whatever you want to call it. Intelligent Savage 6290 says, salute guys. I'm so happy to catch the live this evening. Let's go. Let's get it, Tigers. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, Intelligent Savage. You're one of our regulars. Good to have you. Wet Sox with a question about Clemson. He said, Jordan, what was your favorite bar downtown? Probably Study Hall or It's Your Wiener. But, when I was there, I was not a huge bar guy. I was a social drinker. So, like, I wasn't like I wasn't dying to go downtown all the time. But, yeah, probably between those two. Triple T's is fun, but, like, it's always crowded. So I didn't love it as much. Backstreets is cool. Best wings. Yeah, some of the best wings you can get, man. Oh my God, Backstreet's wings. But yeah, let's see. And there's so many. Wish we had starred more.
I know.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. You got a couple. Intelligent Savage also asked, with Tom Allen now officially the new defensive coordinator for Clemson Tigers and a great teacher of the game, which of our young Lions on defense do you believe will break out under Allen in 2025? Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, break out, like we know so much about a lot of these guys that are coming back because we've seen them play, but I definitely want to see, kind of a bounce back from guys like Khalil Barnes and Shelton Lewis, who was out at multiple points this year with injury. So I want to see those guys. Obviously, want to see Sammy Brown's role increase this coming year.
Yes.
And obviously, I just want to see a bounce back performance from the defensive line as a whole. Just be back to that dominant, just force that teams had to really game plan for. It just didn't feel like, it didn't feel like you were as imposing up front, even though you had the bodies. Like you just weren't, because couldn't stop the run and meant you didn't really get as many opportunities to rush the passer.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys that have an opportunity. Obviously, that nickel position is going to be kind of the one everybody thinks about because of the hybrid stuff that he likes to do there. So that'll be interesting to see who fits into there. Just got that transfer from Alabama, Jeremiah Alexander. He could be a guy that could contribute, I think. But I'm excited to see if we can get the real Khalil Barnes back in 2025, because he was so good and just kind of took a step back this season. So I would love to see a resurgence of him.
Absolutely. Because we've seen those guys play at a high level, and they just, especially Khalil Barnes, like he.
Yeah, there's no reason they can't do it again.
Right.
And as a whole, the front seven producing negative plays, tackles for loss. I'm ready to see a Clemson defense back to that sort of style of play.
Isaac Smith with a BYOG or sell. He says Cade will be in New York next year. Oh man.
Ooh,
hitting us with the hard hitting ones.
Well, what I will say is there's one fatal flaw in Cade Klubnik's bid for the Heisman. He's a Clemson Tiger quarterback. So, I'm not saying there's no way. I'm just saying,
Man. Yeah, I'm probably going to cheap out on this. Cheap on this one and hold for now.
I think if we have the season that this roster's capable of, if everything comes together, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, if this roster gets to its full potential in 2025, we're making a deep playoff run. And Cade Klubnik's going to put probably better numbers than he put up this year. And he put up 3,600 yards, 36 passing touchdowns, 7 rushing touchdowns, so and he's going to come into the season already in the conversation. So if he puts up numbers like that again, he's definitely going to have a chance.
Yeah. He had to earn his respect this year because he was not on the radar.
Yeah. People thought he was a terrible quarterback coming into the season.
Yeah.
That's just,
Not
no more, though. Not no more.
David says, can Ben teach the linebackers how to suplex? I hope he doesn't. Yeah, that'll.
No, please don't, because we could get penalties. We'll get penalties. Don't do it.
You can't do what you used to.
No. It was fun to watch, but we cannot do that.
Yeah. B says study hall is way too crowded. Yeah, I haven't been since I was in school. So I mean, it was crowded then too, but I'm sure even more so now because they keep letting everybody and their mama into Clemson now.
Yeah.
But like, and it's not even like that. They're like, I mean, their acceptance rate has dropped, but they've still admitted more applicants because they get more.
They get so many more. Yeah,
they've increased in applications every single season, every single year. It seems like for like the past decade, and they are not doing anything to accommodate for the increase in student body. So that's great. I think they I know there was talks about them building a parking garage. I hope that happens, honestly, because parking at Clemson is hell on earth.
Terrible.
And Clemson Parking and Transportation Services are a corrupt organization that likes to steal money. So, and from hardworking people. So, a parking garage would probably solve a lot of those problems and get people less tickets. I had too many friends that got towed for. Anyway, not a good time. Not a good time. Let's see. Wet Sox asked, so what went wrong with the Donovan Murph recruitment? I mean, I wouldn't say there was anything that went. I think Clemson recruited him as well as they possibly could have. And South Carolina there were a lot of things that were beyond Clemson's control that kind of played into that. But it's one you didn't win.
I mean, he's headed to a crowded room. I'll say that.
Yeah, he is. But
they've signed a ton of dudes, man. They have signed a ton of wide receivers.
Yes, they did. Definitely. I mean, they needed to. I mean, that room is not in a good spot.
Yeah, no. They for sure.
Their leading receiver this year was Nick Harbor with 370 yards. Like, I mean, yeah, they needed the help. They needed to infuse it with some, talent. Let's see. Tiger Tom says, unfortunately, Backstreet's not what it used to be. Yeah, I've been told that. Yeah. It's kind of the consequence of a growing. It's a growing town, and I mean, Backstreet's has been there forever. Like, it is what it is. Study hall, same way. TDs. Clemson just flat out needs more bars, probably. That's ultimately
it's
what
small, man. Like it's
small, man.
It's you bring in a whole bunch more people, and there's just not enough to
accommodate.
To accommodate everybody. Yeah.
Isaac Smith says, I think he's referring to Jeremiah Alexander breaking out. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely on. When you bring a guy that was as highly recruited as he was coming out of high school and bring him, and obviously things didn't work out at his previous stop, there's always that potential of, okay, sometimes a fresh start is what a guy needs, and they figure it out. And that would be perfect. I mean, that would be awesome for this linebacker room, for the defense as a whole, for him to, the kind of, that spark to happen.
Yeah, he could definitely be a guy that could benefit greatly by a guy like Tom Allen coming in.
Yeah. David Wood mentioned Ronan Hannafin. Yeah, I think he's going to, take some, especially with the departure of RJ Mickens, like he's going to be in that conversation to get an increased role in that safety room. I think he's taken to the position change really well from everything I've been told. Like he's a hard worker, and so I'm excited for him.
Yeah.
Let's see. Tiger Fan 24. On a serious note, though, I'd like to know how y'all met. I'll give the Cliff Notes version. But we met on here, not on this show specifically, but on the internet and on YouTube. we were in a lot of the same YouTube communities, particularly college football. And, we both had done YouTube, our own YouTube projects, channels previously. And when Mark wanted to, start a show on this channel, we were like, hey, I think we could do this. And so that's how it happened. And
that's how it happened. Right here on YouTube in the same comment section you guys probably frequent all the time. Uncle Lou,
Pigskin
Pete, Brian over with Clemson Football Live, used to be Bobby Durkins at the time.
And of course, here the main,
and then the Voice of College Football, Mark channel.
Yeah.
We were in the same comment sections, and Mark put out the feelers for who was interested in doing a show for the Clemson channel, and that's how we met.
Yep.
And the OGs know that it started with 4 people on here, and then it kind of organically evolved, and it's down to me and Jordan, and we just kind of clicked, had chemistry talking about college football, so here we are.
Here we are.
So we're almost to the point where we're figuring out what we're doing here.
Yeah, we're getting there. Jason asks, what do y'all think will be the big headlines coming out of the spring? Well, I guess hard to project that, but I would say obviously the things that we're watching are a lot of the position battles, like who's leaving, I guess. But I think ultimately, I think how the depth chart in spring shakes out and how Tom Allen evaluates his room. Both coordinators, both sides of the ball, really, how they evaluate their position groups and whether they decide they need to go get somebody or they're happy with the room they have right now. I think that's what the spring is about right now. At this point, it's constant evaluation, and so I think those will be the headlines. Hopefully, those are the only ones. I don't, because other than that, really, it's injuries and stuff you don't want to hear. So
yeah, hopefully it's not injuries. Running back will probably be a point of question. Maybe that's answered in spring practice, or like you said, maybe they identify that, hey, we got to go get somebody. Same thing with safety. Maybe the edge position, depending on how it shakes out there. I know we got 2 guys in TJ Parker and
will
help. But outside of that, we need some more guys to continue to step up and progress because, again, you need some depth. So I think that'll be and then punter. Where are we at with special teams? Where are we at with the punting situation? Did Jack Smith suddenly figure out how to be more consistent? Can he kick the ball further than 30 yards?
Yeah.
Does Dabo need to take a plane to Australia and find a punter? I don't know.
Yeah. QTNA, questions that need answering. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we got some question marks, but overall, you got to feel pretty good about the roster and the coaching staff. So
Isaac Smith, BYOG or sell. Bozina enters the transfer portal after the spring. I would sell.
I hope not.
I sell. I think there's always been a very clear understanding with Chris about
I think if Chris Bozina was leaving, he would have left in this portal cycle.
Yeah.
Why would you stay through spring? What would be the purpose?
He's not.
He knows right now he's the backup quarterback next year. He's fully aware. As soon as Cade Klubnik said he's coming back, he was fully aware of what his situation was, and he chose to stay. So it wouldn't make sense in my mind to leave in the spring. Not that it couldn't happen. Obviously, anything can happen. I mean, somebody comes calling with enough money, it is what it is. But I mean, he's fully aware of his situation at Clemson right now, and clearly he's willing to sit another year because he knows that's what is going to happen, barring injury to Cade Klubnik. Hopefully that doesn't happen.
And I think the understanding, I mean, it's not like he's just going to get 1 year to start. Like he knows the job is his to lose next year, in 2026.
Right.
And he has 2 years of eligibility. Like he would have 2 years of eligibility. So it's not I only got 1 year.
Yeah, he could be a starting quarterback at Clemson for 2 seasons if he plays well enough, right?
Right.
So and that's plenty tape to put on, that's plenty of tape to produce to get to the NFL.
Yeah. I think there's always been a clear understanding with Chris, and
he's playing the long game.
Yeah, they've commuted. These conversations I'm sure are always happening about the plan for Chris and his development and his time to be the starter. Like I think he's fully okay with where he's at right now. Now I could be proven wrong, but
yeah, I mean obviously
with the events that have happened so far and how he's handled it, he's very much. I mean, he loves Clemson. I know that for sure. He
doesn't stay for spring practice if he's not willing to sit another season.
Yeah,
because it just doesn't make sense.
It wouldn't make sense. Like I would want
to. He knows the situation. He knows he's going to sit another year. Now, come this time next year, he goes through spring and doesn't win the starting job. Then he's probably going to transfer because at that point he just needs an opportunity to get on the field. So you would understand then. But if he was going to transfer, I think he would have already been gone.
Yeah,
I'm sure he got taken care of with the NIL package. So he's one of the rare ones that is willing to play the long game.
Yep.
And it may end up, and I hope it does. I hope it ends up working great because that means that we had a guy develop for 3 seasons, and then I mean he's a veteran the second he steps on the field, even though he hasn't played.
Yeah, he's been slow cooking.
Yeah. He's in the what's Dabo call? He's in the crock pot.
Yeah, he's in the crock pot. Yeah, exactly. Like
he's got one more year in the crock pot, and then we're gonna break him out.
And that's the ideal situation for any college if you can get a guy that's as talented as Chris Vizina to sit for multiple seasons. That's rare. That's a luxury. And I think Chris is I'm excited to see when he gets the opportunity to play kind of his development but I think like this is a great thing for Clemson, and ultimately it could end up being the best thing for Chris because sometimes there are just guys that just need to sit for a few seasons and learn and get really acclimated. I thought he showed some flashes in limited action this past season, and you certainly see the raw ability, and so he's had some time now, and he'll have another year this year to kind of prepare himself, knowing that it'll be the keys will be handed to him, at least tentatively, for 2026. So
and hopefully we're good enough that he gets some significant snaps this season. That'd be nice.
That would be nice.
That would mean the season's going well if Chris Vizina's getting a lot of snaps, or Cade Klubnik got hurt. But
we were a lot of late snaps.
Yeah, a lot of late snaps. Yeah. In games that are over.
All right, let's do a couple more because we've gone so long, longer than we normally do. David asks, how far will this team go next year? Is beating LSU on the table? I mean, to answer your second question first, yes, absolutely. I think I'm not going to spoil it. Well, I am going to spoil it, I guess. But as it stands right now, I think Clemson is the better team going into that game. But LSU has made some transfer portal additions, and you don't really know until that the game is played. But beating LSU is absolutely on the table. I think this team can do that.
Of course.
So, how far will this team go next year? It's up to them, but I think the potential is that this could be a team that makes a deep playoff run. As it stands right now, how many months away? Just 7 months away.
7 months away, yeah.
Like I think this team could be really good. But
yep,
we'll see. Let's see. Okay, y'all are talking about some weird stuff later. I don't know what David. David, I don't know what you're on, but all right. Jay says if the defense can improve like we want, Vizina will play a lot this season. Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
And yeah, if you can get stops, like it'll get Vizina those opportunities. Because I mean, even in the games like he did play, like against NC State, you're up 59-14, and then you give up 21 points in the fourth quarter. That's not good. It's not good. End up winning 59-35 in a game that score should not happen. Yeah, I know it's garbage time, but no reason to give up that many points in a quarter with any of your with any of your backups playing. Trevor says, and this is absolutely important. Says beating an SEC team convincingly would be great for the team's respect. Yeah, I mean, it is a big opportunity for Clemson in this opener because I mean, you get it at home. It's going to be a great atmosphere. You're going to be in the prime time slot more than likely, and a team that garners national respect in LSU. I mean, especially with the narratives that are going to be propagated throughout the offseason because of how you performed against the SEC this year.
Yep.
This has been, people don't like to acknowledge that this was the outlier here in terms of Clemson against the SEC. But you get a chance to make a statement in week one. And as John mentions, LSU is getting famous for losing openers because they've lost.
They haven't won one
since
their national championship season.
Yep.
So
what was it? 2020. That was the year that the COVID year. That was the year that KJ Costello in Mississippi State put up like 1 million yards on them.
Yeah.
2021 was I believe that was UCLA. They lost to.
Yep.
Then 2022, they lost to Florida State. And in 2023, they lost to Florida State.
Yeah, they lost them twice, back to back. Yeah.
Yeah. And then this year, they lost to
Southern Cal?
Yeah, Southern Cal.
Yeah, Southern Cal. Yeah.
So,
which ended up not being a very good team.
Yeah. So their track record in openers. So you can look at it two ways. It's like, okay, yeah, they're on a losing streak, but it could also
you can look at it that they're due for one. A win, or that the streak will continue. I tend to think it'll continue. I just think overall Clemson's a better team than LSU right now. Again, a lot can change between now and then. You still got a whole nother transfer portal season. You got 7 months of potential injury time to get through. You got spring practice. You got fall camp. There's a lot of time. Everything could change. You're one injury away from your season changing, especially at a position like quarterback, right? So got to hope for the best.
Yep, knock on wood.
The rosters in college football are not nearly as deep as they used to be because of the transfer portal and NIL. Because I mean, there's teams poaching your 2 and 3 deep.
Yeah, Jay says, we got to start back winning openers too, though. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
That's true. Yeah, we've lost 3 of the last 4 openers.
Yeah.
Because 2021 lost to Georgia.
2 to Georgia, and 1 to Duke.
1 to Duke, yeah. And then we beat Georgia Tech in 2022.
Yeah, Georgia Tech.
Yeah. So, not great.
Not good at all. Not good at all. But LSU's not Georgia, so there's that.
They're not.
And we can argue all offseason about the real Death Valley. So
yeah. That conversation will never get stale.
Oh yeah. We'll fire that old argument up
Yeah.
in the summertime.
Sounds good. All right, I think that's going to do it for us.
Yeah, we've gone 2 hours and 42 minutes at this point, so I think it's time to call it quits. We still got 47 people hanging out with us, Jordan. There's a
You are
bunch
some
of
sickos.
degenerates in this chat section right now. You guys are absolutely outside of your mind. I don't know why you're here listening to us, but regardless, we appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for being loyal supporters of the channel and of the show. Couldn't do without you. Wouldn't be a show without you guys. So appreciate each and every one of you. If you have not already, hit that like button on the way out. And we'll see you next time. Next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Be right here for the All In Show, unless some sort of crazy news comes out and we have to do another special edition live.
Hey,
so,
you never know.
We'll see. But yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Until then, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He's Jordan Bowman. Go Tigers.
Later, y'all.